Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, boxing and MMA fans from around the world. Introducing from Bassett, California, the third man in the ring, Popeye Ray.
Hey guys, welcome to Third Man in the Ring. I'm your host, Popeye Ray. Today we got another awesome interview. This promoter, Tom Loeffler, 360 Promotion, has gone worldwide now. Ireland, all over the United States. So today, I'm going to interview him, let you fans know where he grew up, how he grew up, where he's at today, what's his future plans. And remember, guys, he had some big fighters and still got big fighters. So I want you to give a warm welcome to my friend, your friend, Tom Loeffler.
Thanks, Ray. It's good to see you.
How's it going, man?
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Busy man. I've been, hey fans, I've been on him, man, bugging him, man. He probably was blocking my calls, but Tom, I need this interview, man. So, Tom, where's today? Today's October 12th.
Yeah.
Right. Where's 360 today?
Well, today, we have our shows on UFC Fight Pass now. You were there when we started the Hollywood Fight Nights at the Avalon.
Show, man.
At the Avalon in Hollywood. It was a Hollywood nightclub. So we started the Hollywood Fight Nights to build fighters, local kind of homegrown fighters, to get to the next level. That's when we were doing all the Triple G shows on HBO and doing the Klitschko fights. So I wanted to have a platform because those dates were kind of like spread out. I wanted to have a platform to develop talent, grassroots talent, to then have them make the transition to the next level where they already had the experience to go on to an HBO.
So prior to Hollywood Fight Night, did you ever promote?
Oh yeah, sure. No, I mean, we did the first show that I promoted was in 2004, Vitali Klitschko versus Corey Sanders at Staples Center. That was my very first show, if you can imagine that, Ray.
And I was there.
Heavyweight championship, WBC heavyweight championship on HBO. That was the year after Vitali fought Lennox Lewis. So what happened, the way I got into the Klitschko business was I was managing fighters. First fighter I started managing was Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly, WBC featherweight champion, one of those rare situations where he was number one across the board against with all sanctioning bodies.
Great fighter.
Tremendous fighter out of New York. That's kind of how I had my ties to New York. I was born and raised out here in LA, in the Valley, in Woodland Hills. And but because a lot of the fighters were from the East Coast that I was working with, a lot of people thought for some reason I was from out there. And we did a lot of shows at the Garden. Kevin was signed with MSG Boxing at that time.
Oh, okay.
That's how I started. And then I worked with Obakar. I worked with Shane Mosley, which a lot of people might not remember. But, I mean, you remember Shane in the amateurs. And then as a professional, nobody wanted to fight him as a professional.
He was bad.
He was really good. I remember all the wars with Gennaro Hernandez. And
busted up Oscar a couple times.
Yeah. So
good fight, but Shane totally won that fight.
Yeah,
you know?
The one there at the Staples Center, and so Shane couldn't get a world title fight, and I did a deal with Shane. We did a deal with my partner Harlan Warner at the time. Harlan, going back before the boxing, I was in finance and real estate. Then Harlan brought me in because he was representing a lot of retired athletes. Sandy Koufax, Joe Namath, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jim Brown, a lot of those guys. Biggest client that he represented was Muhammad Ali. Wow. So I came in, met all these legendary, retired athletes. Because of Muhammad, a lot of fighters were contacting us. That's how we got in contact with Kevin Kelly. And then that's how my background developed as, sponsorships, sports memorabilia. And then Harlan is a genius with sports memorabilia, but didn't know anything about managing fighters. So then I got kind of like put into the fighter manager role, boxing manager, and then I developed that into 10 fighters. And Shane was one of the guys that, like I said, he couldn't get a fight. Nobody wanted to fight him as far as any of the champions, because very good fighter, one of the best lightweights. One of the best lightweights ever. But so I did a deal, and we promised him a world title fight within a year. So Kevin Kelly was with Cedric Kushner at the time, and I did a deal with Cedric where he had a good relationship with Rodney Berman, who was representing Philip Holliday. We got Shane the world title fight, the IBF world title fight against Philip Holliday. That was the very first show at the Mohegan Sun. So that was on HBO, and then so I was working with Shane. I was working with James Toney for like four fights with James Toney. And then I had Ed Mahone. If you remember Ed, that used to fight at Forum Boxing down there, heavyweight.
Rings a bell.
He was.
But real quick, Tom, James Toney, James Toney?
Yeah.
I don't know why, but is it me? But he just seems like an underrated heavyweight champ. He is such a great fighter.
When he won that heavyweight title, it just showed how athletically talented. He has such a natural talent.
Yes.
James's only problem was he didn't like training and he didn't like making the weight.
Yeah.
So
tough cookie though,
yeah,
man.
very tough.
Made it look easy.
So natural in the ring. Remember all those fights he had, Michael Nunn and Prince Charles Williams, and all those tremendous fights that James had. So I was with James. It might have even been 4 or 5 fights, but worked with James. And then so Ed Mahone, I brought Ed in 1999. I brought him over to Germany to fight Vitali Klitschko for the WBO heavyweight championship. That was right after Vitali knocked out Herbie Hide.
You weren't Klitschko's manager,
no,
right?
No, I didn't know them, and so I was actually with the opponent against fighting against the Klitschkos. So the reason I brought up the Ali thing was their publicist at the time, after Vitali knocked out Ed in the 3rd round in Germany, we were talking after the fight, and I always try to be cordial with whoever's in the ring. It's sports. It's you're not trying to kill someone in the ring. You're trying to win a boxing match and promote a fight and everything like that. So he introduced me to Vitali and said, Tom does a lot of work with Ali, and I told Vitali, whenever you want to come to LA and meet Muhammad in the office, you're welcome to come. Like 5 months later, he calls me up and says his wife was pregnant and they wanted to have the baby over here in LA at Cedar Sinai. So he comes over here to LA. I set up the meeting. He comes to the office, meets Muhammad, and then we struck up a personal relationship because he was here with the baby and the wife and his wife for about 3 months. And so I met him for lunch, pretty often.
And was it both brothers you managed? Or just...
Yeah. Well, I met Vitali first.
Okay.
And I actually didn't manage him. But what happened was he would always run things by me. If there was anything in his career, he would say, Tom, what do you think about that? What do you think about this?
Okay.
He was unhappy with the German promoter at the time. And so then when that contract came up, the last fight on that contract was the Lennox Lewis fight. And then...
Right here at the Staples,
At Staples Center, yeah.
Great fight.
That's one, if you talk about controversy in the ring, that's one where I wish they would have let it go at least one more round. I know the cut was bad, but when I talked to Alou Moret, the referee in the ring, who I thought did a very good job in that fight, he called the doctor in not because of the cut, because he said the cut was under control. Where the cut man, after every round, he was able to control the bleeding, stop the bleeding. Mm-hmm. So when he came out, and then naturally when Lennox hit him on it again, then it would start bleeding again, but at least the cut was under control.
Well, I mean, with that said, I just interviewed Dr. Wallace. He said what it is, it just, like you said, it was under control, but through the doctor's eyes, they felt, you know what I mean?
And doctors always, it's their job to be safety first.
Safety first.
My issue with that was Vitali was winning the fight.
Yes.
He was up through 6 rounds. He was up 4 rounds to 2. If you're losing every round and you have a bad cut like that, and it's like, okay, well then let's stop the fight.
Exactly.
But so Lou told me afterwards that he called in the doctor because he had a new cut on his tongue. He had that, Lennox landed that huge uppercut in the 6th round, which normally would have knocked out anyone in the ring. And Vitali had an iron chin where he just took a step back and then kept coming forward. And you saw the body language when they stopped the fight. Like at the end of that 6th round, Lennox collapsed into his his corner. He was exhausted, and Vitali, was jumping up on the ropes. And that was one, Ray. That was a very unusual situation where going into the fight, walking into the ring, like 80% of the fans were for Lennox as the current champion. They knew who he was, and Vitali from Ukraine. Wasn't that well known over here, and then by the end of the fight, like 80% of the fans were for Vitali.
I remember
because of the heart that he showed. He wanted to keep fighting. He had blood streaming down his face.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Our fans, they love brutality, and that was a stone toe-to-toe awesome
That was
fight.
for a heavyweight fight. I've seen a lot of
Most
boring
heavyweights
fights.
just hold, and not all, but a lot of them tend to just hold. But they were just getting them up. They were chucking them, as they say. You know?
Absolutely, that was one of the most exciting heavyweight fights I've ever seen. 6 rounds of just back and forth action. I got to give Dr. Perlman Hicks credit on that one, where he sewed up Vitali at Staples Center in the dressing room. 63 stitches, I believe he said, 3 layers. So the cut was bad, but he said there was no danger of being near the optical nerve. There was no, sometimes you get a broken orbital bone, and then naturally you want to stop it that way. So anyway, so that's how I developed a relationship with the Klitschkos, and then they had a problem. They weren't happy with the German promoter they were working with. The contract came up. And he said, Tom, who do you think we should sign with? And I said, Vitali, instead of signing with a new promoter or another promoter, HBO or the TV companies want to work with you, the arenas want to work with you. Let's just start our own promotional company, K2 Promotions. And
especially after the Lennox Lewis fight, he was a hot item, right?
He was very popular, yeah. If you remember,
a lot of American fans loved him after that.
After he won the title against Corey Sanders, which was another tough fight. Remember, Corey Sanders had knocked out Vladimir in the second round.
Yes.
So it was kind of a revenge thing. And Corey was a tough.
He was no joke either.
May he rest in peace. He passed away, unfortunately, but he was no joke. He hit Vitali in the first round, and if Vitali didn't have that great of a chin, he could have really gotten hurt in that fight. But he wound up winning the fight. And then I got him. If you remember that was 2004 when they had the Olympics in Greece, and Tom Cruise was carrying the torch, and Vitali in Dodger Stadium. I had Vitali as the new heavyweight champion in Dodger Stadium with Tom Cruise, and there were like 2 other people carrying the torch. But anyway, he was very popular in LA there, and then
still is the man. And you know what? Not to get off the subject, but I take my hat off to the Klitschko brothers. They're fighting for their country. And you know what? Let's be honest, fans. These guys don't have to do that. They're millionaires. They could just, hey, I support you. They're out there fighting, bro.
You're right.
So, my prayers are with them, and I pray that ends. But to the Klitschko brothers, muy chingón, man.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Tom.
They had such great legendary careers.
Yes.
Vitali, he fought Chris Arreola here at Staples Center. He had a number of title defenses over in Europe. He had injuries. He had back, his shoulder, his knee. He had so many injuries that he actually stopped fighting. And then if you remember, 4 years later, without a tune-up fight, without anything, Sam Peter was the heavyweight champion at the time.
Yeah.
And Jose Suleiman, may he also rest in peace, Jose said, okay, because you're retiring because of the injuries, he made him the champion emeritus, which meant whenever he wanted to come back to fight and claim his title again, he would get an automatic shot. And after 4 years, he fought Sam Peter, who was a big puncher, fought him in Berlin, and dominated Sam Peter and won his title back. So that was the first time I've seen someone take off that long of a time. And then you see people like wanting to come back. I need like 2 or 3 tune-up fights to get back into a world-class fight. And Vitali didn't care. He just let me go in there and get my title back. But he had a huge career. And then Vladimir, he had gotten stopped 3 times before in his career. Corey Sanders, Lehman Brewster, if you remember that one. And then early in his career over in Ukraine, he had gotten stopped. And then he started working with Emmanuel Stewart. May Emmanuel rest in peace also, but I feel like I've been doing this so long, we know all these people that are unfortunately not with us anymore, but and then he went on Vladimir went on this legendary 25 title defense streak after losing 3 times by knockout, and that was such a testament to what Emmanuel accomplished with Vladimir. And
it just goes to show how you get with a trainer that knows the business, knows how to fight, and can adjust to you as a fighter.
Yeah.
I'm real close to Ben Lira, and Ben Lira says you can have a fighter, but you got to know his style. This style might not work for that. You got to know his style and work off what he has, and that's a testament to it right there.
And also,
3 losses to all those defenses.
Emmanuel was a genius in terms of mental motivation and mental strength. Because Vladimir, you know, when you lose, you know, when you get stopped 3 times, you're starting to question things. You're starting to, you know, should I be doing this? Vitali actually stopped, suggested to him, Vladimir, maybe this isn't for you. You know, you should, you know.
That in itself, if your brother tells you,
right? He was the older brother looking out for the younger brother.
Yes.
And then that's when kind of Vladimir did his own direction, and
you know, that just shows love. But I remember one of his losses, he got in there and he pushed the opponent like, you know, that's my little brother, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I forget which particular one, but I just said,
he was very protective.
that's brother love, you know what I mean?
Vitali was very protective of the younger brother.
Only because he was a little bit taunting, you know what I mean? Like, hey, get off, you know, that's my little brother.
Not sure which one that was, but
that just stuck out in my mind because, you know, I got 5 sons, so I always tell them, you guys need to watch each other. But yeah, you know, props to those guys. But before we keep moving on, Tom, tell the fans about Tom. Where did Tom grow up? You know what I mean? They want to know Tom.
So I was born and raised here in LA. Grew up in the Valley. I'm out
Valley
here.
boy, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I went to high school out there, Woodland Hills, and I've been out here on the west side, you know, for like the last 25 years. It's just, you know, dealing with the heat out there, you know, 110 degrees, the 405 traffic, you know, most of the meetings and everything was kind of happening here in LA or on the west side. And so then I moved over here. And
good childhood?
Yeah. Lost my father early, unfortunately, when I was 13, but mother did a great job raising me, and I have an older brother raising us.
Props to mom, huh?
Yeah. And just appreciate everything, you know, here in the LA lifestyle. And, you know, then, you know, I wasn't really planning on going into boxing. It really wasn't my first passion as far as watching sports. I was a Lakers fan, Dodgers, naturally.
That was my last question, but all right.
Yeah, that was, remember,
so you're a Lakers fan, huh?
Steve Garvey, what was it, Ron Say, Steve Yeager, remember all those guys? Yeah, the Penguin. So those were really my passions. And then Magic Johnson. I mean, who didn't like Magic Johnson at the time? And Michael Cooper and all those guys. But
so you got into real estate, huh? That was
my father.
That was by trade.
My father was a real estate broker, and so I was kind of going in that direction. Studied finance and real estate in college. That's what the direction I was going into. And then, like I said, my friend Harlan, he had the sports memorabilia company. I got a great story for you, Ray. So he was doing sports memorabilia with all these, you know, legendary athletes. He did a deal with Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev. So if you remember when Reagan was there in Berlin and he said, Mr. Gorbachev, please tear down this wall. And, you know, my parents are both from Germany, so that was a big deal. You know, East Germany, West Germany, tear down the wall type of thing. And so the first trip I went on with Harlan, meeting Muhammad Ali and meeting Joe Namath. Joe Namath would sign footballs and throw them to me, and I would like stack them up. So if you can imagine catching balls from Joe Namath.
I had a lunch pail of Joe Namath when I was a kid.
Broadway Joe, right?
Broadway Joe.
So the first trip we went on was right when the wall came down, and maybe a year later, we flew to Moscow. You know, an old Aeroflot plane that smelled like diesel fuel.
Takes off.
It was bizarre. Yeah. Actually, not on the way over, but on the way coming back when we took off from Moscow. I remember it was like an old plane, and we were happy that, you know, to get there, to get back. But fly over there, and so Ronald Reagan signed a bunch of baseballs and different pictures and things like that. We went over to Moscow to meet with Mikhail Gorbachev. So if you can imagine that. We were there, and we didn't know.
That's history there, man.
Yeah, like even getting in there with the visa at that time, because remember, that was right after the Cold War. And that was the first trip I went on. And we were over there waiting for Mr. Gorbachev, who, you know, was running the country and everything. And we got an audience with him, and we did a deal where Harlan made a financial contribution to his charity for world peace.
And he did tear down the wall, Johnny. Guys, he did tear down the wall.
Yeah.
Props to Mr. Reagan.
Yeah, he got that worked out, you know, in a peaceful way, because there was a lot of history there where people were trying to come across the wall and they got shot or whatever it was. But yeah, so that was my first trip, was flying to Moscow and meeting with President awesome, Gorbachev was huge. And then it just kind of went on, like I said, then it kind of went in the boxing direction. And
so as honest as you could be, Tom, and you've always been an honest guy, was your first thing is financial? Like, hey, I might make some money off this, or was it for the love, or both, or both? You know,
it wasn't financial because Harlan did very well on the memorabilia side, but on the boxing side, we were pouring a lot of money in, just getting guys fights. When I was managing 10 fighters, remember Carlos Navarro?
Yeah.
Carlos Navarro, brothers with Jose Navarro and Nacho Navarro. Now
East LA kid.
Yeah, East LA, and now Chantel Navarro. It's funny because I've been going back. I've been doing this so long. Now I'm working with the next generation, where Chantel Navarro is fighting on our show October 26th.
You know what? It's a trip. It never clicked. Until right now, he looks just like the other, his family. What is he, a nephew, cousin, or what?
Well, there's a few Navarros. I mean, Steven Navarro, who's a nephew of Nacho and Carlos and Jose Navarro.
Okay.
And you have Cuco Navarro.
See the resemblance.
So it's a Navarro family, but definitely.
My son even fought on your show.
Yeah,
my son.
That's
Adrian
right.
Corona, man.
Yeah, at the
he had one of his best
Avalon,
wins.
At the Avalon, and then he beat the guy from Oxnard. What was it, Danny? I forgot his last name, but Danny from Oxnard. That was at the Quiet Cannon.
Yeah, the Quiet Cannon.
That was so we had to leave the Hollywood nightclub because of we had to shut down because of the pandemic. And then the Quiet Cannon had that big patio on the outside. So
real quick, Tom, when the pandemic hit, did it hit you? I'm sure it hit you financially.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
What was your game plan? I mean, because we really didn't know the future.
Didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, everyone was scared. People didn't want to go outside their house. I remember going to the supermarket and just like running through the supermarket because you didn't know what was going on with this virus. Oh
my God!
Yeah, or they sneezed or whatever. But
we pulled through. But what was that plan during then? Just day by day?
There really wasn't a plan. I remember we had a March St. Patrick's Day show scheduled. And ours, I think, was March 17th, and then they shut everything down like March 14th. Everything was shut down, or it was even at the end of February. They were shutting down sporting events and different things like that.
Thank you to HDC Construction in Ontario, California. They're a national leader in commercial construction with a proven track record of expertise in cold storage solutions and epoxy flooring. Their team works closely with you to efficiently meet all compliance standards while maintaining budget commitments and completing projects on time. HDC Construction works with Fortune 500 companies and small businesses throughout the country in the areas of steel stud framing, refrigeration panels, dock doors, comprehensive drain systems, fire sprinklers, block walls, and much more. If you have any modernization or full service construction needs for your business, HDC Construction is here to help. For bids, quotes, or a free consultation, call 909-626-0214 or visit their website at www.hdconstruction.com.
So March, they canceled that one show, huh?
And you didn't know how long it was going to go. It was out for a long. It was dragging out. You couldn't go outside the house. You had these bubbles, everything like that. So we didn't know what was going to happen. That kind of like, if we back up a little bit to with the Klitschkos promoting both of their fights throughout their legendary careers, I actually hold the record of being the promoter to promote the most heavyweight championship fights of this century.
Wow.
Since the year 2000, because when you take Vladimir's fights, Vitali's fights, now Usyk was with K2 Ukraine. A good friend of mine, Alexander Krasyuk's running K2 Ukraine. And so Usyk's kind of carrying on that tradition of what we did with K2 Promotions with both the brothers. But under the success of the Klitschkos, then I had a mutual friend in Germany, saw the success we had with the Klitschkos. He was friends with Triple G, who wasn't really known as Triple G at the time, but he had the same German promoter, and they were working to get out of that contract. I had a meeting with him, and then actually signed Triple G, and then that's kind of history where we got him on HBO 2012. He made his U.S. debut.
And never, I'm 61. Never in my, and I've been a boxing fanatic since I was a baby. My brothers, but Triple G just won over the Mexican community like no other.
Absolutely.
Like no other.
I mean, if you talk about a destructive force in the ring, and you mentioned Ben Lira, so Triple G trained with Abel Sanchez up there in Big Bear. Ben would come up a lot and bring guys up there. He actually brought Sebastian Fundora to spar with Boachuk, who Boachuk in his own right now has done some great things under 360 Promotions. But we had a great run with Triple G. As soon as I got him on HBO, a very humble guy, very soft-spoken. But when he got in the ring, I worked with a lot of great fighters. Never seen in his prime, such a destructive force. If you remember when he fought Lemieux, another champion, and just dominated him in Madison Square Garden with a jab, or the way he knocked out Matthew Macklin with a body shot, or Daniel Geale where he got hit in the face and then knocked him out with one punch. I mean, and then like you said with the Mexican fans, Abel naturally is Mexican and spoke fluent Spanish, so Abel would give a lot of interviews with the Spanish media. Yeah. And so we had Triple G, because of the success of the Klitschko's in New York at Madison Square Garden. I had brought Triple G there the first couple times to fight over there in New York, and there's a big Kazakh community over there. So we started building him up on the East Coast, and then when I brought him to StubHub, which is known for great, tremendous fights down there at StubHub, we didn't know what to expect. His first fight here in LA, he was training in LA, I'm based in LA, but we had no idea with the Kazakh fans and who's going to come watch, Triple G. Yeah. For the first time.
And I could be wrong, but that wasn't planned when they asked him, what kind of style are you?
No, it wasn't, no.
A Mexican style.
Mexican style, yeah.
And you know what, it just...
he had these quotes.
Yes.
And that was the fight. That was Max Kellerman asked him that fight in New York, in Madison Square Garden, and he said, I fight Mexican style because Abel, was teaching him the Mexican style, but that was so ingrained in his head, and he was such a pleasure to watch. It was kind of similar to Tyson, where even if he had an early knockout, the fans didn't care because they just wanted to see the destruction in the ring against world-class opponents.
Exactly. And you know what? I met Triple G like 3 times, and you know what? You know what, fans? He was a megastar. Megastar. Across
every spectrum.
When Ben Lira's wife passed away of cancer, I turned around and who's sitting behind me? Triple G. Mm-hmm. Yep. That says a lot about the man. He could have been saying, that guy's, he's just a trainer. He went to Ben Lira's wife's funeral. I just was in awe. Wow.
That shows how authentic.
Authentic. Really, that's a great word really for it. Authentic.
And that's what translated with the fans, not just Kazakh fans, but with the Mexican fans, because they loved his being humble, but then they loved the excitement in the ring. He wouldn't dance around. He wouldn't try to win a 10-round decision.
Right there, man.
He wanted to show that he was the best in the world. And so we did that fight at StubHub. It's a 7,000-seat outdoor arena. Yeah. And we completely sold it out like 3 weeks before the fights. Then we added another 2,000 seats. We broke the record. So his very first show or fight here in Los Angeles at StubHub, we had to add another 2,000 seats. So we had 9,000 people in the StubHub Center against Marco Antonio Rubio, who was known, but it wasn't like he was a Mexican star. And the fans just came out, and I remember one of the guys, Boxing Guru, he made the Mexicans for Golovkin t-shirts, and it was great. We had the tailgate parties out there. So that was a fun time with Triple G. It was great just taking him around the world. He was a real definition. I kind of wanted to model his career after Ali, because Muhammad fought all over the world, whether it's in the Philippines, whether it's in Zaire, whether it was in Europe, whether, wherever it was, even San Diego down here at the Garden, he had the great fight with Joe Frazier at the Garden.
And it's crazy you bring up Muhammad Ali, because I met Muhammad Ali at the Staples Center at the Klitschko fight. I think it was a Klitschko fight. And man, I just felt so, felt like I met a disciple or something. You know what I mean? It just was crazy.
You're like in awe.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. When I met him the first time, he came to our house with Harlan, and he came in the doorway, and he was pretty tall, but it was like just one of the, it was like bigger than life.
Yes.
Larger than life, and it just
funny man as well.
Great sense of humor, but another real authentic, and he was really stuck to his principles, because if you look at today's sports stars, these athletes, where they look at the money more than their career. When you look at Ali back in the late 60s, early 70s, when he was the highest paid athlete in the world as the heavyweight champion, Olympic gold medalist, and then to sacrifice 3 years of his career because of his beliefs of He didn't want to go to the Vietnam War and said, I have nothing against them, but why should,
Yeah, they never did nothing to me.
They didn't do anything to him. And he had a good argument that he was treated worse over here than he would have been treated over there. So it really, talk about someone really convicted with his beliefs and everything, and what he accomplished as an ambassador for the sport of boxing. When I met Muhammad, it was already when he had the effects of the Parkinson's, and his speech was really quiet.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And but he had a bigger effect. I have so many Ali stories, but he had a bigger effect on people when he couldn't speak that well than when he was out there telling, I'm the greatest, I'm the, and people were like, they were kind of discounting him a little bit back then. But then after he became such a legendary folk hero, when he lit the torch in the Atlanta Olympics, remember, 1996.
I don't know how you felt, but it brought me to tears, bro.
It was,
it was so,
he was shaking.
It was beautiful, but it just like, man.
That's a coincidence that Vladimir, who I then would work with later on in his career, won the gold medal in the '96 Olympics, and that's where Muhammad lit the torch. But I have a great example of with Ali. We had an appearance for him once in Atlantic City, and he's the only one that I can think of that would have this effect on people without saying anything. Mm-hmm. He was one of those guys, didn't want to walk in the back door. He said, I spent my whole life trying to be famous. Now that I'm famous, why would I hide from my fans?
That's right.
He was one of those guys that enjoyed the fans being around him. He took photos, he signed autographs, and we walked in the front door of the casino, if you can imagine, Bally's Casino in Atlantic City. And it's like the first people in the lobby, when you first walk in, they saw, oh, there's Muhammad, there's Ali. And then they got kind of quiet, and everyone was like looking at him and kind of circling around him, and then the other people were like, well, what are they looking at? And then they started looking at, how loud casinos are, and the slot machines and the blackjack tables and craps or whatever, and everyone's having a good time. And it was just like a wave going through the casino as people realized that Muhammad Ali's walking in the front door. Everyone got quiet. And then that, it's a story that kind of brings chills to me when everyone realized who it was, and then they started chanting Ali, and it was just like, wow, it's like he's the only one that would have that type of effect on people, and it was tremendous. And another thing which a lot of young fighters, a lot of young athletes should take a lesson from the greatest of all time. I did an appearance for him, a 3-day appearance over in Germany. Mm-hmm. So he has Parkinson's, he flies over there, he has jet lag. We had a long day where he had to do an appearance and meet with some sponsors of the event, that type of thing. That was actually the premiere of the Will Smith film, the Ali film, Will Smith.
It's a great movie too.
It was a tremendous movie, done really well. And so he's over there, like I said, he's tired, the whole thing, and Lonnie goes in, his wife, goes in the hotel. He's got, we have some of the security people from the hotel there, and they wanted to get him through to the elevator to go up to his room so he can go rest. And he's like, and there's these German fans lined up on both sides of, they had it cordoned off so he could walk in. And you can see, they're crying because back then, when he was fighting, it'd be 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning.
To watch it,
and it brought back all these memories of them watching the Ali fights with their father back then, and now they see him in life.
That's how I felt when I met him.
And he's there, and he sees the emotion, and he's walking in there. And then, like I said, Lonnie's like, well, come on, let's go to the room. And he's like, no, he started signing autographs, and he was signing, and he's like, no, because he knew this is probably going to be the only time they're ever going to see him in his life. And he's signing, and that's what a lot of athletes don't appreciate is the fans. The fans are the ones that make their career.
That's right, I was just going to say it.
I used to tell Triple G, every autograph you sign, that's one more ticket you're going to sell. Every autograph you sign, one more pay-per-view. And that's how you can kind of translate it. Sometimes you have to kind of put it into a little bit more, of a situation where they understand, they can relate to it. And Triple G was great with it, but Muhammad was the best, where, like I said, he's the greatest of all time.
When I see fighters talking stuff to each other, nobody could do it like Ali.
No, Ali was a master. And the poetry that he wrote.
Yes, the poetry, the humor of it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Now it gets kind of ugly, but he kept it fun.
Yeah.
He kept it fun and
exciting
and entertaining.
Yeah.
You couldn't get past. But let me ask you this question. These are some of the fans so what do you think of all the title belts? How many title belts do we have now?
I think that's one of the problems with the sport of boxing. In one sense, they were created so like if there was one champion, and then, if the people didn't get a title shot or whatever it was, then it was kind of created where you could have multiple champions, more people would get an opportunity. So that's one sense of providing fighters.
So can I corner you, Tom, and ask you, what are the top belts in your opinion?
It's hard to say the top belts. I've always had a great relationship with Jose Sulaiman and Mauricio Sulaiman, and I see what the WBC does worldwide.
Are they one of the oldest?
The WBA is the oldest.
Okay.
Historically the oldest. Then the WBC came into existence, and then the IBF, and then the WBO, and then the IBO came after them as the fifth.
And IBF is like a sister to WBC. Am I right? Oh, no.
Not
sorry,
necessarily.
I take that. NABF.
Oh, the NABF, yeah. NABF.
Yes. And that's a smaller title, right?
Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. NABF is the sister sanctioning body to the WBC.
Yes.
The USBA is with the IBF.
Oh, okay.
But either way, in one way it was good as far as more people got an opportunity to fight for a title, but in another sense it was bad in terms of being the pure saying, okay, this is the champion of the world, because now the fans don't know, is this guy the champion, is that guy the champion, or is a unified champion or undisputed champion. So there's goods, there's positives and negatives.
There's pros and cons to it.
Pros and cons, yeah. But that's one thing. I have a great relationship. I'm wearing the UFC Fight Pass shirt here. I have a great relationship with.
We're going to get to that.
With Dana White. And
that's what we were going to ask. How did that come about?
So Dana, he had a famous quote, at least for me it was a famous quote. At one time he said, the only reason I watch boxing is to watch Triple G.
Oh, okay.
Because,
he's a Triple G fan, huh?
Dana was always a boxing guy, but he was kind of turned off by the sport and everything that was going on. And what Dana did, to his credit, UFC, there's one championship belt.
Yes.
The best fighters fight each other.
Yes.
And every time, every show, it's a compelling fight. And not just the main event, but they've have like maybe 14 fights on the show. And from the first fight on the night, second fight, whatever it is, they're always competitive fight. There's no build-up fights like, okay, we're going to keep this guy busy, we're going to put this guy on a big show, but he's going to be in a showcase fight. Every fight is a competitive fight, and that's what the UFC fans love. I've always been a boxing guy. I grew up as a diehard boxing guy, like when I started managing the fighters. And it was like the UFC came in, and then it's like, well, now the UFC has a larger reach, a larger fan base than the boxing fan base, and a younger demographic.
Yes,
that's what the sponsors love. And what Dana did is like he put in the fights that the fans wanted to see. A lot of times look at Mayweather and Pacquiao, for example. Just one example. That took so long to make. I mean, it was a huge success when they made it, but it would have been so much better if they could have made it early on, or some fights never get made, for whatever reason. And Dana, you could lose on a UFC television broadcast, and 2 months later, 3 months later, he might have you back on in another televised fight. In boxing, the mantra with HBO was, if you lose on HBO, it always takes you like 2 years to get back onto HBO. And that's, it was like, I think Floyd was a tremendous fighter, but I think he did a disservice to the sport where, you're so much focused on the 50-0 record or undefeated record that you don't necessarily fight the best guys or the most challenging guys. And that's what I think boxing lacks is you see what's happening over there in Riyadh right now with His Excellency Turkey making some of the best fights that would have never been made before, because he's investing the money, and now the fights are happening. But it really took something like that to make some of those fights.
With that said, though, Tom, is it because he has, from what I hear, he has a bottomless pocketbook?
I wouldn't say it's bottomless, but he definitely has invested a lot into the sport. When you can pay multi millions of dollars to an Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, look, we're getting the rematch now with Usyk and Fury. I have Boachuk now. Boachuk had a tremendous fight against Virgil Ortiz. I thought he won that fight.
Which was a great fight.
Most of the fans thought he won that fight.
But it was a great fight.
But now he's coming back, and Boachuk's a perfect example.
Are you looking for a rematch on that one?
Well, here's a perfect example of a guy that wants to fight, a guy that wants to show that he's the best and not afraid of taking a tough fight. Fought Brian Mendoza, who knocked out Sebastian Fundora.
Yeah.
Tough fight. Boachuk dominated him. Wins the WBC interim world title. A lot of fighters that first win the title fight, they want to make a few defenses. milk the title a little bit, and then take a tough fight. He went straight into fighting Virgil Ortiz. We thought we won, but anyway, that being the case, gained a lot of fans because of that performance. And now he's going to fight Israel Madrimov on the December 21st show over in Saudi on the rematch of Usyk and Fury.
That's
and that
a set
shows
deal
you,
already?
That's already done. We just announced it last week. And talk about tough fights. That's about as tough a fights as you can get. But he's the type of guy that wants to show that he's the best in the division. But that's what boxing needs. Boxing needs fights like that.
Triple G was too, right?
Triple G, we were looking to fight anyone in that middleweight division. And like I said, he fought David Lemieux. It took a long time to get another champion to fight him. He finally unified with that. Then and then the whole story with Canelo, where he actually wanted to fight Sergio Martinez. Sergio Martinez at the time was known as the best middleweight out there. Yeah, he had a great run, Sergio did. But then Sergio decided to fight Miguel Cotto, winds up losing to Cotto at Madison Square Garden. Triple G, because he beat Rubio for the interim title, was mandatory for Sergio Martinez. Then he becomes a mandatory for Cotto. He kept saying, or I was saying, he doesn't want the belt. I mean, he doesn't want the money because they wanted to pay him step-aside money. Instead of having to fight Triple G, they wanted to fight Canelo. Said, he doesn't want the money. He wants the belt. You just vacate the belt, and that's fine. You don't have to pay him any step-aside money. But then Mauricio was like, oh, let's make the fight with Canelo. So we said, okay, we'll allow Cotto Canelo to go forward, and then Triple G will be the mandatory fight the winner of that. Then Canelo, who was never really on Triple G's radar screen because he was a 154-pounder at the time, he fights Cotto, wins the middleweight championship belt, which Triple G wants. Triple G becomes a mandatory for him. Then we gave him one defense. They used the same thing. Let's make one title defense, then we'll fight Triple G. Signed everything, no step-aside money. He can go ahead and fight Amir Khan.
Well, let me interrupt you real quick, Tom. That's what the fans kept telling me. Ask Tom this. What is the big deal when they're going back and forth? Are fighters asking too much money, or they want something different?
At that level, it's not too much money. It wasn't too much money because it's based on a percentage split. Triple G had a huge fan base. He would sell out Madison Square Garden. We went into the whole thing with LA here at StubHub Center. He sold out the O2 Arena against Kell Brook. He was one of those guys that really was the definition of a world champion. We went to Japan, fought Murata, sold out the Saitama Arena out there, went to Mexico City. That's another story. I'll do another Triple G story where we went into a children's cancer ward. This is what Mauricio and WBC Cares does a tremendous job with. Yeah. We went to a children's cancer ward in Mexico City. Triple G walks in, there's this little baby girl crying, and then as soon as he walks up to her, she stops crying. And she's a baby girl, and he puts his hand on her, and it's like, wow. It's like, I mean, those are the really emotional things that you can't. That's how you gain the fans. And it wasn't like a stage thing. Let's take a picture. I mean,
I went to a children's orphanage in Croatia with Suleiman, and that was very touching. Well, you remember?
I was out there, yeah. Yep, you're right. And we were out there, yeah.
No, I mean, these are humble fighters, but that's what I'm saying. The fans are always saying, well, what's taking so long? What's the big deal? Why don't they just fight? And is it, I want this much money to fight them?
A lot of times it's financial. A lot of times the champions want too much money to fight someone, or someone else prices themselves out to try to make the fight. Triple G, there was a lot of times we had to pay the opponent just as much as he was getting as the champion, which was unheard of.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
But in order to get the fights,
you got to.
That's what we were doing, and he just wanted to fight active. He wanted to fight often. He was the most active world champion at the time, fighting 4 times a year. And when a lot of people don't realize, he was already 30 years old by the time I started working with him. So I didn't have a lot of time to develop him. Look at Callum Walsh now. Callum Walsh is kind of our rising star on the 360 Hollywood Fight Nights series. He's only 23 years old. He's already fought at Madison Square Garden twice. He's fought in Boston. He just fought in Dublin. He's fought out here in LA a number of times, trained by Freddie Roach. So Callum has a long runway that we can kind of build him up, look for what direction to go into with him. With Triple G, it was just like, let's get the titles. He had the WBA title. Let's get the titles. Let's fight the best guys, and make the best of it. And that's why we pushed so hard for the Canelo fight. Once he got that title, what I wanted to say is that Canelo was the first or maybe the first fighter from Mexico, WBC champion from Mexico. Remember, he vacated the title when Triple G was the mandatory. He vacated the title. Then he agreed a year later to go ahead and fight him, and we had that great trilogy between Triple G and Canelo. But that's kind of like the Triple G history of starting with the Klitschko's, going to Triple G. Then we did the Superfly shows. Those were all on HBO with Chocolatito. Remember Chocolatito and Carlos Cuadras and Estrada and Sor Ringvasai. We had all those. That was a fun show because.
Are you your matchmaker on your 360 promotions?
No, we have Charles Boziger as the matchmaker. Great matchmaker. Does a tremendous job.
Props. I've refereed a few of your shows, and the fights are always competitive.
Well, that's the promise I made to Dana, is that if he gives us the opportunity to put our shows on UFC Fight Pass, worldwide streaming service, the most combat sports events of any platform. They do over 200 events, I think over 220 events a year. And I said, he's like, I hate boxing when there's mismatches. I said, Dana, every fight we're going to do, you can't always get it right 100% of the time, but you can do your best to make it look on paper that it's going to be competitive.
Well, I can only speak on past fights, but I did your main event at Quiet Canyon, and he fought that African-American kid from Chicago. Yeah. And man, they were...
That was Boachuk, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Boachuk.
Oh my God, that was a tough fight. I was refereeing that. I didn't want to stop it.
Yeah.
But then towards the end, he
was breaking him down.
That's exact word.
Yeah.
He was breaking him down, but for the first 5 rounds? I think it was the 6th round.
It was back and forth. Yeah.
It was back and forth. I'm like, I really thought to myself, did he meet his match? But no, he overcame. Great fight, great matchup, and that's why when I said what promoter can I interview, I thought Tom.
There we go.
Because you always got action-packed fights. That's what the fans want to see. The fans want to see, and they want to come and see. Don't bring me a tomato cans. And no disrespect to any fighter. Anybody that gets in there, they're awesome. But sometimes they'll bring that kid in to lose. Mm-hmm. And that's not fixed, guys. That's not fixed. It's called just politics.
Or a mismatch.
But you know what? A fighter can still come in with 20 losses and still give them hell. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. There's been a lot of veterans that'll upset an undefeated kid.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, Ray, that I think is a disservice to the fighters. I've seen a lot of guys 15-0, 20-0, 25-0, and they have a built-up record. And then the first time they get in a competitive fight, they don't know what to do.
Yeah, they get shell-shocked.
When they're not a front runner, they get shell-shocked. And that's what we do. Like, Omar Trinidad is a perfect example. He was match tough every fight, and he kept winning and kept winning. And I was telling Mike Stiles, and then Charles Boziger, I was like, we should sign him. So
I got to interview Mike.
Yeah, Mike's great. Mike's got some great stories too. But so Omar kept winning. We signed him, and every time he's in a fight, he headlined Commerce Casino. Now I think this will be his 3rd time. He's a fan favorite. The fans love him because he puts on a great show. He's never in a boring fight, and he's fighting tough guys. He's fighting Hector Sosa, coming up, number 4 in the world in the IBF. Omar's number 13 in the world, and Omar's defending his WBC Continental Americas title. That's October 26th at Commerce Casino, and I mean that's as close to a 50-50 fight on paper as you can get. I mean that's going to be a tremendous fight for the fans. And Omar's one of those non-stop guys, always in a great fight, always exciting, and that's what the fans want. And we get the largest crowds at Commerce Casino because of the type of shows that we put on over there.
And for whatever reason, a lot of celebrities show up at your.
Yeah, we do get celebrities. Dana White's coming.
I thought it was maybe because I was refereeing, but I guess not.
Well, Halle Berry came to see you.
Yeah, that's right.
She came to a few of our shows. Have a great relationship with her. Tremendous career herself, but a big fight fan. She really big fight fan. Mario Lopez has come to a number of fights. Mario. He went.
White showed up a few times.
Dana showed up to support the shows. Yeah. We've had a number of athletes come by. Basketball players, football players. Max Crosby came out. From the Raiders, he came out to. Our show in Boston, he came with Dana out there. George St. Pierre. We get a lot of UFC fighters coming to our shows, so it's really kind of going from that Hollywood name and genre.
And to you fans, you guys, it could be a date night.
Yeah.
It could be a date night. I took my wife a couple of times to your show when I wasn't refereeing. But it was awesome. But let me ask you this: since Dana White's involved, have you ever thought about doing a hybrid show?
With
Has it ever
boxing
crossed your
and
mind,
MMA?
you know, throw an MMA in there?
No, that's not really what we're doing. We're really specializing and focusing on boxing, but you know, exciting boxing fights. And this is the thing with the UFC Fight Pass. If we're going to get UFC fans to watch boxing, it's got to be an exciting fight. They don't want to see a guy dancing around the ring trying to get a 12-round decision or a 10-round decision just to win the fight. They want to see action. They want to see exchanges, and that's where I got to give Charles Boziger a lot of credit. Is the matches that he makes knows they got to be an exciting fight.
Man. Props to Charles, man. Good matchmaker. So let me ask you the question that I'm a little afraid to ask.
What's that?
So how do you feel about some of these bad decisions and officials?
You know, whether it's my fighter...
Should I grab my headgear?
Yeah. Whether it's a fighter we're working with or someone else's fighter.
In general, you know what I mean?
I just want to see if a fighter wins a fight and the fans think a fighter wins a fight. It's like if you go to a football game and one of the teams wins 24-14, you know, the team with 21 points won the fight. And a lot of fans, you know, we saw that in the first Triple G Canelo fight. A lot of fans thought Triple G won that fight. It got a draw, but, you know, it's like that's what discourages fans is that when they come, they buy a ticket, they buy a pay-per-view, they watch the fight, and then they're watching it, and then the wrong fighter gets a decision. It's like, well, what did I just see? And then they start questioning themselves, like, are the judges seeing something that I didn't see? You know, so that's the one thing that I would like. If a fighter legitimately wins a fight, they should get the decision. Like, again, because I think it hurts the sport of boxing. A lot of promoters will be like,
it does.
you know, my guy has to win type of thing, and they put it sometimes they put the officials kind of in a pressure situation where it's uncomfortable for them. But you know, they really, for the sport of boxing, for the long-term the right guy should win. You know, the Boachuk Virgil Ortiz fight, another one, questionable decision where you get 2 knockdowns. I know you can't speak on it, but you get 2 knockdowns and you don't win a decision and you lose the title at the same time. That gets a little bit challenging, but that's the only thing that I would comment on.
With that said, fans, look up BoxRec, and I encourage you to do it too, Tom. Look up BoxRec. The judges in the world, we have the 2 top judges in the world, stats-wise. Fernando Villarreal, number 1, and Rudy Barragan is number 3. Plus, we have another 4 in the top 50.
That makes a big difference.
So, and this is, and props to my boss, Andy Foster, the executive officer in California. He had said this like 10 years ago in training class. If you bring shame to California, you will not work. You will not work. And mind you, as far as the refereeing, I'm not saying we're perfect, but Jack Reese and Tom Taylor, they have this class, sole arbiter. We have officials from all over the world coming to, you know what I mean? So
I think California, just to add to that, I think Andy does a great job here in California. He's developed it where it's promoter friendly. Well, he still is very rigid with the rules. You got to follow the rules, but he doesn't make it impossible for a promoter to actually do a show here. I actually enjoy promoting here in California, in my home state. Yeah. There was a previous official who made it impossible to promote here, and so Andy, I got to give him a lot of props. Nevada is doing better now under Jeff up there in Nevada. New York's doing good, but California does a great job. And like you said,
and you work with Mark Ralia,
our chief. Mark Ralia, Ernie is very good, and you mentioned Jack, Tom Taylor, yourself. You know, we got some of the best referees here, and some great judges as well.
And to toot my horn, to toot Jack and Tom, we're trained. The fight's not about me. The less I'm seeing,
you're right,
is better.
The better job you do, 100% on the referee side.
You did that fight, Ray? Right. That was a compliment.
Huge compliment.
I don't want to be involved. I'm not going to nitpick. You know what I mean? If it's a flagrant foul, definitely, I'm stepping in.
Yeah.
But if
you got to keep control of the action.
That's right. You got to keep control of the action. Mm-hmm. Keep them safe. That's the main thing. But like Jack says, if somebody's got to keep saying your name, Ray, you obviously were doing something wrong there.
That's what I don't like. That's one thing I'll insert into that comment is sometimes a referee will be too involved in the action, and that throws off the balance of the fight.
When they're tied up, let them work out of there. You got some
100%.
fighters that want to work inside.
Yep.
And just because they get tied up a little bit, don't break, stop, get up.
Yeah.
Nah, let them work out of there, man. Because
that's part of the action.
Body work is, to me, that's beautiful.
Yep, I agree.
When you have a fight that can work body, oh my God, that's just beautiful. But yeah, that's so. Got that off, because I thought you were gonna rip me a new one there. So if Joe Blow comes up to you, Tom, I'm a professional fighter, I want to, can you sign me? What are you looking for?
We get a lot of people.
I know.
We get a lot of
That's what I'm
people
saying.
wanting to fight with us now.
These are fans' questions that they email me.
Because they see the success that we've had.
Yes.
Not only the success I had on HBO with the Klitschko's, with Triple G, with the Superfly shows, but now with Callum Walsh. Callum Walsh is literally the fastest rising star in boxing. He has the support of Dana, he has the support of the UFC. When they post something on their main page, Instagram has over 40 million followers.
And this is the fight you took to Ireland, right?
Callum Walsh, trained by Freddie Roach.
Yes.
He's 12-0 with 10 knockouts now. He only has 12 fights. He's 23 years old, but he's known all over the world. We had 5,000 Irish fans, most of them Irish, there in Dublin at the 3 Arena. And it was so loud, Ray. I got to tell you. I mean, StubHub was loud when Triple G walked in there, but the 5,000 fans there, they got so loud they started singing a song in the first round, and it was impressive. That was one of those moments as a promoter. It's like, okay, we did this right. Dana had the vision of, okay, let's bring Callum to Dublin. They did from the UFC side. They did all the TV production. And we put the fights together, and it was a tremendous fight. He fought Ranowski, another guy. Callum was 11-0 with 9 knockouts. Ranowski was 22-2. Never gotten stopped before. Went the distance with some world-class fighters, and Callum dismantled him in the second round. He really rose to the occasion. That was a special thing about Triple G. Like when we brought him to HBO for the first time, boom, impressive fight. When we brought him to Madison Square Garden for the first time, impressive fight. He always rose when the spotlight was on. He had a better performance, and the same thing with Callum. Like he didn't freeze. A lot of fighters, like they're carrying the weight of the promotion of their hometown. I've seen that before, and Callum had a tremendous performance.
Yeah. So again, if Joe came, you know what, Tom?
We're very selective. My philosophy, Ray, is I've never worked with a lot of fighters. Some promoters have 50 athletes out there, boxers, and then you can't keep track of all of them. You can't keep them busy. My philosophy is you got to give them special attention. Like with Triple G, we had so many endorsements and sponsorships for him with Jordan brand. He was only the 3rd athlete ever to have a Jordan deal. Hublot, Tecate, Chivas, so many different sponsorship, but that took a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of commitment to that one athlete. And so if we have too many fighters, then it gets watered down, and I can't do a good job for the ones that we have.
You can't do them.
Yeah, so we like to be very selective. It's got to be someone that's going to be exciting. Got to be someone who's willing to take a tough fight, also.
Yes. Because
it doesn't do us any good. Doesn't do the fans any good. Again, these type of build-up fights, and that's really what we're looking for. I mean, we are still signing because we're going to have 12 shows next year on UFC Fight Pass. That's the beauty of working with UFC Fight Pass. They give us, because we've proven that we can put on some great boxing events. We've gotten the highest ratings ever for boxing on UFC Fight Pass, which is a huge testament to what we've been doing only in the last 3 years. So it's exciting times now into the next phase. I was always, had the fighters on HBO. Now on UFC Fight Pass, it's a tremendous opportunity to work with Dana and to cross market with the UFC fans.
And that was my other question. With the fighters you have now, you don't have to mention names. Do you ever get any just outrageous requests from their trainers? Like, no, I don't want that fight. I want this fight, and this fight. Because bottom line, if they're contracting you, tell me if I'm wrong, you still have the last say-so, am I right?
We make it so that
you'll work with them?
We work with them. I'll never force a fighter to say, if a fighter really doesn't want a particular fight or a trainer doesn't want to fight, you got to fight this guy. That's not really our style. We'll work with the fight. We want them to be happy. We have a long-term relationship. Look, with the Klitschko's, I did up until Vladimir's last fight when he fought Anthony Joshua in Wembley Stadium. I was with them from 2004 to, when was that, 2017 or 2019,
even in his loss, that was
whenever it was.
Fight.
Yeah, that was a great fight. That was a fight where Vladimir gained more fans in that loss than he did in some of the wins, because the way he fought. He had Anthony Joshua on the ground, 90,000 people there. But, you know, I look at a long-term relationship. Triple G was over 10 years I was working with him. So I don't like to do, like, you know, a 3-year deal, 5-year deal, whatever. I look at making sure the athletes are happy, making sure they understand that, you know, we're giving them enough attention. You know, my background was from the management side, so I'm a real hands-on promoter, whether it comes with sponsorships, whether it comes with social media. You know, really, they can interact with us directly. And, you know, again, with 12 shows, that's a lot of shows. That's a monthly show next year. Yeah. But, you know, you see some promoters have, you know, more than, you know, like 20 shows or whatever it is. And then that, I think at some point,
you lose touch with your fighters, no?
The fighters, and also you can't promote each event properly. You know, I like going back to the Triple G philosophy. Like, we announced the fight, then every week we were doing something to promote that fight. He was here. He was at a Laker game.
You gave him full attention.
3 times he threw out the first pitch at Dodger Stadium. We took him down to Mexico. We did a promotion there.
Props to our Dodgers.
Yeah. Oh, the Dodgers are looking good. It was looking a little shaky there for a minute against San Diego, but now they're looking very good. But yeah, I mean, those are the type of things you really need to do. And Callum's on the same track. He goes to a lot of the UFC fights, gets a lot of attention from there.
So is it fair to say, Tom, if I want to get signed with you, keep winning and you'll recognize me, you'll see me, you'll hear about me?
Well, if the fighters reach out and contact us, it's going to take a certain. We are selective, but it's going to take a certain combination. And like you said, it's got to be something where we understand the philosophy of the fighter, the philosophy of the trainer, philosophy of the manager, because we want to be on the same team. They might have a totally different philosophy than what we have, which is okay for them, but then we might not be the best fit for them.
There you go. It's like a little marriage almost, huh?
Oh yeah, it's a big marriage. It's you sign a contract, and it's a marriage contract.
Here's my next question. Have you ever had a bad relationship? You don't have to say names. Just how do you deal with that when fighters are making weight? You know, you know what I mean? Well, or whatever, getting in trouble.
I try to avoid that. In terms of, again, being selective with the fighters we're going to work with, you pretty much know if it's going to work out or not. So, you know, if you start...
Is it attitude you're looking at, or...?
Attitude also. You got to appreciate... The fighters have to appreciate what's being done for them, but also appreciate the fans, you know, and so the attitude plays a big part of it also, and the way they market themselves also. Yeah. You know, a lot of the fighters that we work with, they understand the value of bringing fans in, you know, to the fights. A lot of fighters like, no, I've seen fighters... They're like, and a lot of opponents that we worked with, no, I'm focused on the fight. I can't do this interview. I can't do this appearance. I can't do that. But then you're not building up the fight. You're not building up the promotion. Yeah, and ultimately, you're not building up your career.
Exactly.
You know, and
you have to be a fan favorite.
They have to understand that. Yeah, we just signed Right Hook Roxy, one of the most decorated amateur female fighters ever.
Very pretty young lady too.
Yeah, she can fight. Very attractive, very marketable. So we're excited about her. You know, there's a lot of young fighters that or a number that we've signed, and we're excited for next year for the shows.
Awesome. Well, before I always close, I always ask, as Tom, what other sports do you watch? Do you watch other sports?
I do watch other sports. You
mention the Lakers.
Yeah, I've become a UFC fan now. I never really followed it early in the.
I've always been a UFC fan, MMA.
I watched it really early.
But it's funny, Tom. I like UFC, but I'm more excited with stand-up. Yeah. You know, when they do stand-up, I guess it's my boxing.
I agree. It's more exciting. Yeah, the stand-up. You know, Conor McGregor, great stand-up. Yeah. You know,
the Diaz brothers,
Max Holloway, Diaz brothers. I watched it early on. Remember when
I ref the Diaz fight, the boxing one at the Orange
down
County.
There with Masvidal. Yeah. That was entertaining. But when Gracie, when he was early on and dominating there, I watched those, and then. You know, but now because of the relationship with Dana, we've been going to a number of the UFC fights. I know the fighters. We meet them personally at the shows and interact with them. And a lot of them, like I said, they see who Callum is, and he's kind of got that nickname, that boxing fella, because you can argue that more UFC fans know Callum than boxing fans because he's been around that whole UFC marketing and publicity machine.
They know him though.
They do a great job.
I get a lot of
the boxing fans know Callum.
They know him. Boxing fans know him. They love him.
Yeah, and he's an exciting fighter. He's a likable guy. He's another one.
That's what I was gonna say. He's likable.
He's got charisma. He's got that Irish charm. He's got the charisma.
Very polite when he goes to the fights.
Yep.
He'll reach out to you and say hello, and that's what they like. They like a humble person.
It's an important quality, and we bring a lot of our fighters. Like at October 26th at Commerce Casino, when Trinidad's headlining it, Callum Walsh will be there. Sergey Boachuk's going to be there. Roxy's going to be there. I mean, there's going to be a lot of fighters, and then, we make sure that they interact with the fans. So even if they're not fighting, they're still going to be out there, still going to be seen, and it's a great
taking photos, autographs. Yeah. All right, if it comes, so you still like the Lakers? You still a Lakers fan?
Not as much as before.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I like Jeannie Buss. I think she does a tremendous job. When there was my Lakers was Showtime Lakers, Kobe, my favorite Lakers, Shaq, Kareem, Magic. I mean, those guys, James Worthy, Michael Cooper, all those guys was Michael Thompson. That was really my era of Lakers. I still enjoy watching them, but they're not as successful as when they had the rivalry with Larry Bird,
successful,
and Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's one of my favorite athletes of all time.
Yeah, he was bad.
Yeah.
Chicago Bulls.
When we did the deal with the Jordan brand for Triple G, that was like a dream come true. We were trying to get him a deal with Adidas, with Puma, with pretty much any Reebok, any company out there, Nike, and then we were able to get some traction with Jordan. They saw the value, they saw the fights coming with Canelo coming up, and that was a tremendous, when you talk about a marriage, that was a tremendous relationship. Jordan has become so popular in Kazakhstan because of Triple G. It's just like they saw him wearing the Jordan brand, and he's like a worldwide ambassador for the brand.
Yeah. What kind of music do you like watching? Hearing.
I like, I'm a rock guy. My first concert I went to was Pink Floyd at the Sports Arena at the Wall. That one was the Wall, but that's Pink Floyd, Van Halen, Led Zeppelin, Rush, AC/DC. Any of those groups are great.
And if you were to go out for a dinner tonight, what would you be eating? What's your favorite food?
My favorite restaurant is Hillstone I have two favorites, Hillstone in Santa Monica and Tropicali, which is like a kind of an island fusion place up there in Big Bear, where we go up there for the training camps. But
and what kind of food
I like sushi, I like steaks. I like Italian food. Yeah, I'm pretty universal when it comes to food. Like Mexican food, love. With Abel, we've had a number of margaritas together with Abel. So
I've seen you took out Ben there a couple of times.
Ben Lira, David Avila would come out. Yeah, it was. So
absolutely. Before we say goodbye, Tom, I just want to thank you for coming on. You want to say anything about your fighters coming up? I see you got a bout sheet here. Is that a bout sheet?
This is a bout sheet. We have 10 fights. 10 fights on October 26th at the Commerce Casino, naturally headlined by Omar Trinidad. That's a great fight. The winner will be for the number 2 spot in the IBF, and he's defending his Continental Americas title. But Gor Yuritsian, trained by Freddie Roach, a fighter from Armenia, he's going to be on the show. Lupita, I forgot to mention Lupita Medina. She's trained by Edgar Hasso and Manny Robles. Very marketable, 7-0. In a tough fight, fighting a girl, Catherine Lindemuth, 6-3. So she's going to be in a tremendous fight. Chucky Barrera, he's undefeated.
I knew him through the amateurs.
7-0, fighting 8-1 Angel Mesa Morales. So that's going to be a great fight. Abel Mejia.
I want to say something on that, but I can't.
All these guys are in great fights. And then Umar Jambekov from Austria. He's 9-0. He's from Vienna, Austria, born in Chechnya, but then they fled when it got invaded by Russia and went to Austria. And he's an exciting fighter too. Also trains at Wildcard. So there's going to be some great fights on the show. Chantel Navarro is on the show. Rodrigo Mascara is on the show. So it's a lot of local fan favorite fights on that show.
Does 360 have a website? I know the answer, but
Yeah.
Can you tell the fans?
360
right there,
Promotions,
tell 'em.
360promotions.us. You can buy the tickets for Commerce Casino there. That one's going to be sold out. Fans, get your tickets early. We got 2 weeks
future
left.
shows, they could still
For
go on.
future shows, yeah. And Chumash Casino.
One more time, Tom. I'm sorry. One more time.
360promotions.us.
360promotions.us.
Yeah, that's for the shows at Commerce Casino. And then we have a show coming up December 13th, Friday the 13th, up at Chumash. Beautiful Santa Ynez Valley up there.
Beautiful area, man.
And that's directly through the Chumash website. You can buy the tickets there.
The what's the city right there with Chumash?
Santa Ynez and Solvang.
Yeah, Solvang.
Beautiful.
After a fight, you go there and get some crazy
That's it.
pastries.
Talk about date night. You can bring a girl up there for the weekend. Wine
right.
tasting country up
Wine
there.
My wife loves the wine.
And a great
Beautiful
casino.
horses right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Tom, I just want to thank you for coming
Ray,
on. I appreciate
good to see
you.
Thank you for coming out.
God's luck to 360 Promotion.
Appreciate that.
All right, guys. Say bye, Tom.
See you at the fights.